All right, now that we've closed up the guitar body, we want to install our bindings. First step in that is bending our bindings. Bending the bindings is going to be very similar to the way that we bent our sides. We're going to put them on the bending machine, heat them up, and try to get them bent to shape. We are going to need 4 pieces of binding. In your kits, you should have a flame maple or ebony, depending on which way you wanted to go. The reason I asked you to select 6 pieces in that guitar kit is because we want to have 4 to bend and 2 extras, either just in case 1 or 2 of these breaks, or so that you're able to bind your fretboard later. The first thing that we want to do with these bindings is get them taped together and get them set up in the sandwich and get ready to bend. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape these together so that they stay pretty straight when they're in the sandwich, and also so that they don't overlap on top of each other and cause issues inside of here. We also want to make sure that they stay aligned, because I don't really want them to kind of go like this or this inside this sandwich. I want to keep them as straight as possible. And if they're inside there reinforcing each other, that actually helps. All right, now these are going to sit inside this sandwich just like we did with the sides, but I do want to spritz these a little bit, and I want to get these wet. I'm not going to steam them, I'm not going to soak them, I'm just going to get them a little bit wet to help me gauge when I can hear them sizzling. And to wrap these, I am going to use parchment paper. Wrapping them does help retain some of the heat, some of the moisture, and even though I'm not really steaming them to bend them, I don't want them to dry out completely and end up case hardened and brittle. So that's another reason why I wrap those. Right, now that should be right in the middle all the way down. Make sure this is aligned correctly. All right, that looks good. Okay, the bindings are in place. I've got them locked in at the bottom. Yeah, the alignment's good. So now I am starting my timer for safety. Plugging that in. I'm going to set it for about 300. I'll get my thermocouple in place, and I am going to grab a spring clamp to keep the back end of this in place as well. While this is warming up, I'm going to get this waist in place. Just keep some pressure on the bindings against the bending blanket. Okay, we are up to right at 250. Anytime about now, I expect to see or hear the sizzling and steaming. Okay, that I can back off right now. So I'm going to take that spring off to allow those sheets to move independently of each other so I don't get bunched up in the lower bout there. The bindings are a little more forgiving than the sides are because they are smaller. They're about the same thickness though. I do tend to go a little bit faster with those bindings. Now I am hearing that sizzle. I'm seeing a little bit of steam, which I'm sure that the camera and the microphone are not picking up. It's pretty subtle. Just going back and forth on these. Almost all the way down, not quite. But really, once you see that steam, you can start dialing these down. Now the upper bout is just as prone to cracking and breaking and bending as the waist is, and in some cases maybe even a little bit more. I just kind of take my time a little bit, but not too slow, getting that bending. And if you hear that cracking, it's not anything to be worried about. On this particular machine, these metal slats grab onto the threads on here and they kind of click along. Okay. Just about closed up on this side. I'm gonna crank it all the way down. This is cranked down, the waist is cranked, everything looks good, I'm happy with this. I'm going to dial down my heat to about 250, and I'm gonna let it sit there for about 5 minutes. And I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes and counting.
And I'll come back in 5. I'll let this sit in the mold for just a little bit longer, let it cool down. After the 5 minutes is done, let it come down to room temperature itself, and then I'll pull the bindings out. Right now it looks like my temperature regulator is doing a good job of keeping me within that 250 range, plus or minus 10, so I'm happy with that. I'm just gonna let that go for a few more minutes. Then I will turn it off, let it cool down at room temp for maybe another 30 minutes. Hopefully it's come down to where it's cool enough to handle by then. Now make sure that when you are done with your heating blanket, with your controller, that you get everything unplugged. Unplug the blanket from your controller, unplug your controller from the wall. We want to do everything we can to make sure that we do not present ourselves a fire hazard. This is a fairly dangerous setup if you don't have safety precautions in place, like a timer or some sort of reminder. So just make sure that when you're using these heating blankets that you are as safe as possible. Stay safe, and we will see you in the next video for routing the binding channels.
Never waiting to stand.